Alright, mates, what's going on? Welcome back. JL Scott Fishing and Eats. We are going to talk Lake Chickamaga. Okay, we got a bunch of guys from the region going down to the Bassmaster Kayak Nation Bassmaster Classic on Lake Chickamauga, heading into Bassmaster Classic weekend, Knoxville, Tennessee. Hopefully we'll be able to see a few of you mates in Rocky Top at the end of the weekend. Expo Bassmaster Classic. Hope you guys, if you're in the region, in the area, make that trip. Bassmaster Classics, legit event of the year. Always has been since growing up. Most of you guys know who follow the channel know I used to go to the Bassmaster Classics in Richmond, Virginia in the early 80s. We had a stretch of like 3 or 4 Bassmaster Classics in the 80s on the James River. When I was 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. Yes, I am that old. Yes. In my 50s. Although a lot of people think I'm somehow like late 30s. Talk to me like I'm 30 years old. Kind of crazy. And hopefully we'll get back to the James River. Hopefully maybe the Bassmaster Kayak Classic, may consider the James River fishery as well. Tidal fishery, one of the best fisheries in the entire country. Highly underrated, but if you look at the tournament results for the past ever, you'll see it is getting better and better and better. It's not better now than it was in the 80s. That's just a fact. If you talk to tournament anglers, most boaters, and all that stuff. Now, I give kayaks a pass because the James is so spread out, and the ramps are not exactly like a lot of other fisheries in terms of access, in terms of number of ramps along the main James River, as opposed to like Chickahominy and Appomattox and all the feeders into that. But as far as Chickamaga goes, there haven't really been that many events on Lake Chickamauga, which is kind of cool, kind of interesting. It reminds me a lot of what Bassmaster did with Possum Kingdom. Because you just don't hear a lot about, it's not like Gunnersville, not like Wilson or Wheeler, or any of those other ones that just constantly you're always seeing events. So that's kind of cool, I thought, from the standpoint from a lot of the anglers that are going here. And it is actually pretty crazy when you think about how many anglers, let me reach over here and grab this, we are actually sending Maryland, Virginia, Delaware, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, in the region that we are sending to Chickamaga. And so that is really, really, really impressive and a testament to all of the clubs and everybody. Sorry, I'm just trying to fix this up. That are sending anglers to these events. Remember, if you are in Maryland, there are 3 clubs that you need to join in order to qualify for the state championship, in order for 10% of those participants finishing in the top 10% of the state championship, which if you're in Maryland or Maryland Bass Nation, that is going to be the Upper Bay and its tribs, most likely out of Anchors Marina or maybe Perryville, depends on where they decide to have the HQ launch for that event for this year. And if you're in Virginia Bass Nation, your state championship is Smith Mountain Lake this year in the end of October. So that's a really, really interesting time to be on Smith Mountain Lake. So kind of killer, if you think about it. When we look at this year's event on Lake Chickamaga, Chickamaga obviously is a reservoir on the Tennessee River. It's an impoundment created by the damming of the Tennessee River. We know this from Watts Bar up to the upper stretches down to lower parts, operated by Tennessee Valley Authority. It's ancient. It's like 1940, I think is when most of these dams, if you notice, like all these dams and all these impoundments on Tennessee River, and a lot of impoundments across the South were all pretty much done in the 40s to 60s. That's when we actually did things in this country. We actually, invested in infrastructure in this country, power generation, right, from dams and all of those things. Actually, probably a better time, in terms of the commitment made. And unfortunately, we're reap the rewards of the investments that were made, forever ago. Now the lake stretches, like I said, from Watts Bar Dam to Chickamaga Dam. Okay, and I'm pretty sure those are the boundaries. You'd have to look on the. Obviously, this event will be on Tourney X. You're talking about 800 miles of shoreline on this lake. I mean, it's crazy if you think about it. I mean, massive, which is going to afford a lot of people, I think, which typically does. I mean, the weather's been crappy, and you hear all that. There's a lot of boating events going on in this part of the country as well that have been days have been canceled, like on Pickwick. Events were canceled for days. All of it. The weather has been wonk. Okay, so you're gonna find somebody in this group of anglers. 132 are participating in this year's classic. It's gonna stand out because this ain't no joke. This ain't no 75, 85 degree weather, summertime. It's beautiful out. Water is great, clarity's great. We're not talking that mess, okay? We're talking like stained up, dirty chocolate, diarrhea, whatever you want to call it, in a lot of areas is what's being reported, mostly off the Tennessee River, going into this event. So, 132 anglers, 800 miles of shoreline total. Rivers, I think, are in play. I think it's the Hiwassee. They shouldn't be on top of one another. They should be spread out. They should be, I would think. But we'll see. It says full pull for Chickamauga is 682 feet above sea level. Normal operating envelope, and there's a level of approximately 676 feet through the end of March, which is where we're at, currently right now. Rising steadily to a full pull of 682 feet by the end of May. So we probably somewhere between 650 and 700 in terms of pool. So it'll be, it's definitely going to be an instrument. 34,500 acres. Okay. 60 miles in length. Gives you an idea of this fishery. Okay, Lake Chickamaga, if you're unfamiliar with that. I know it's not nearly as known in our region as, say, Guntersville is because of the number of events. But it's really, really interesting. I can't think of, for me, a fishery that sets up like Lake Chickamauga here for us, unlike Guntersville. So it'd be very, very interesting. So let's take a look at what we have going down. 132 anglers, and just for prop speak to our guys in Maryland, I believe, have 4 Maryland anglers. I know Matt Campbell is listed on Tourney X as Virginia. I think he lives in Virginia. But he's actually representing Maryland's Bass Nation because he finished, I think, in the top 2 in the state, in the Maryland side. So he's actually really Maryland, even though Tourney X says Virginia. Because I think Virginia's where he lives. You have David Burt, Matt Campbell, John Mitchling, and Bucky Weigert. Okay, those are, from what I understand, the Maryland anglers participating in Lake Chickamauga. Again, this is a 2-day event, cumulative event. So used to Saturday and Sunday events. Wednesday and Thursday, March 21st, 22nd, I think. 22nd, 23rd, something like that. Anyway, it's a middle of the week, and a large part that is, a lot of people kind of push back about that, but I think a large part of that is to hopefully get these guys that finish in the top on the stage up in Knoxville at the Bassmaster Classic, okay? Instead of having them be the events happening the same time. Bass has kind of spread that out. Obviously, there's practice periods and all that stuff going down. And then this is happening on Lake Chickamaga, and then make the run up for the Bassmaster Classic weekend in Knoxville. I think that makes perfect sense to me. Though a lot of people kind of push back, about a midweek tournament. I actually like midweeks. I just think that's, if you're talking about some of these lakes, think about it from going forward, okay? We all complain about boater traffic in our region on Saturdays, beginning about the holiday and then running until Labor Day, right? Memorial Day to Labor Day, and it's just you think about these lakes that are Deep Creek Lake, Lake Anna. These big lakes are just inundated with jet skiers, boats, party boats, and we kind of have to deal with that crap when you're scheduling your event on a Saturday. But when you schedule an event middle of the week, you're not dealing with that. Okay, that's another issue. I don't know if that's an issue on Chickamauga or not. It is in most lakes, in different parts of the country. So that's a kind of interesting, development there, and we'll see whether or not it continues. Out here for us in our region, one of the operating clubs that can get you into the state championship and then into the Bassmaster Kayak Nation Classic is River Runners, which I believe fishes on Sunday. So that's another change from the typical Saturday tournaments. So those are your Maryland anglers. Now Virginia's got a bunch, and they got some hammers too. Going to this, Justin Largan's going to this. Casey Reed, who just had a crazy finish down. I think Lake Murray, KBF. Josh Carter, James Bush, Bruce Steele, and Ewing Minor. Okay, so 6 or 7 Virginia anglers qualified for the Bassmaster Kayak Classic on Chickamauga. West Virginia is sending Greg Harper and Mark Edwards from West Virginia. Delaware is sending 2, Mike Russell, Steven Slotwinski. Hopefully I pronounced that name correctly, Steven. And then Pennsylvania is sending Nick Audi. Nick Audi is a hammer from Pennsylvania. You guys might be familiar with Nick Audi. He fished in the KFL for the Pennsylvania Brownbacks. Also fishes in EKF, I think, and also fishes KBF Trail Series. Kevin Rowland, Al Hicks, Josh Sims, and Eric Whitmer are the Pennsylvania anglers. What I really like about, and obviously you've got some hammers now, okay, in this event. I'm talking across the country. Okay, so if you're looking at your fantasy picks, okay, a lot of names you're going to be familiar with. Josh Stewart, Matt Scotch, that's Texas. Mark Pendergraph, I think, from Texas, or was Possum Kingdom King. Okay, from before, Jay Wallen, Drew Gregory. You've got Guillermo Gonzalez, Christian Fisher, Jordan Marshall is in it. Ewing Minor from Virginia, as I mentioned before, is in it. Russ Snyder's, Garrett Moore. I think there's some well-known kayak anglers from multiple trails, not just bass. Okay, from KBF, from Hobie, from help me out. I'm trying to remember the KBT, Kayak Bass Teams, which replaced sort of quasi, I'll get into that in a future video. The KFL, which now is no longer branded as the Kayak Fishing League. KBT is in the southwest. I think they got about a dozen or maybe 15 or so teams, I think. So you got a lot of anglers from that participating in it. And then, of course, your regional trails, as I've spoken to, because most people are fishing in clubs affiliated with their Bass Nation in their states, and then they fish in their championship, and then they get entry into the Bassmaster Kayak Classic, which is a really, really, really great way if you're really interested in getting into tournament fishing and you want to keep it local and you can't travel all around the country like a lot of these guys are. A lot of these guys are quasi-professional I mean, that are just on the road. Especially so far this year. Some of these guys have been on the road continually since Florida in January that are making a go of it. Okay? Not everybody can do that. And so if you can't do that, it makes a lot of sense to be able to compete in your local within an hour or two of your home, your local trail, or within your state at least. Obviously, I know some states are a lot bigger than others. I mean, Virginia is like freaking 6-7 hours, length, right? Or width. In terms of that. And so participating in those events locally on your weekends throughout the season and then fishing in your state championship in the fall to qualify for the next year may be something you would want to look into. And again, here in Maryland and Virginia, I've got it on the Facebook page, the clubs that are posted up. In Maryland, you have River Runners, you have MAKBF, and you have the Appalachian Kayak Anglers. Those are the 3 affiliated clubs with Maryland Bass Nation, which will get you in the state championship, which if finish in the top 10%, will get you into this event for 2024. I don't have any idea where that event is going to be. I think the Bassmaster Classic for 2024 is Grand Lake, I think. I have to double check on that. So I don't know if there will be an affiliation like this year. Grand Lake has had its issues with kayaking over the years. I think KBF has been working to try and solve that in terms of the restrictions. Not really familiar with that part of the country and that lake at all in terms of fishing as an angler. I just know what I know from some YouTubers that are based in Oklahoma that fish a lot of those Chimney Rock and Grand Lake and places in Oklahoma. But that's it. Lake Chickamaga. It's going to go down this middle of the week. I know a lot of people are going to be paying attention to March Madness, paying attention. Big shouts to my Terps. Ran into that juggernaut Alabama in March Madness. But the Vols are still alive, so we have something in our household to root against, and they beat Duke. It's awesome. Either love Duke or you hate Duke in this part of the country. Let me just tell you that much. So be interesting. Excuse me, man. Trying to still get over this cold. Be interesting to see how this shapes out. If you're going to pick your fantasy picks for the Bassmaster Kayak Classic, because man, it is. You might as well just put it on a pinwheel and let it roll the dice like you're doing a giveaway. Speaking of giveaways, make sure you stay tuned for the March KBF Challenge Series giveaway for the DMV. Okay. Also, this Saturday, for those people that aren't going to the Classic or are going to be around in Virginia, especially in the Valley, I think Jake's Bait and Tackle in the Valley has an event. Check that out on their site. You can bring your kayak to the event to get judged, like best kayak. It's a bunch of categories, like under $1,000. You have invested in your kayak rigging. Best kayaks, best in show. I think there's some event speakers there from Jackson Kayak. Keep an eye on that. I'm telling you right now, one of the things I'm really interested in, I'm going to start covering a lot more of, and I'm going to do some videos on the schedule for USA Bassin. If you are a smallie chaser like me and you prefer river bassin to lake, reservoir, and impoundment fishing, USA Bassin's Trail Park with Jackson will be fishing skinny water, mates, Upper Potomac, although there is deeper water, but you get the feeling. This season, for the first time ever, trail series on the Upper Potomac from Hancock, Maryland, all the way to Point of Rocks, okay? So not all the Upper Potomac, not the sections that I fish almost every week, because they're below Point of Rocks, they're below Edwards Ferry, all the way into Little Falls, from where I live, in the Potomac, Maryland area. So would love to get that into that at some point. Hopefully, maybe they might be willing to extend the boundaries down to Little Falls, which would include a lot of the awesome areas from Algonquin on the Virginia side and things like that. But you got to start baby steps, right? So that's it. Lake Chickamauga this week. Bassmaster Kayak Nations Classic. Good luck to all the anglers from Virginia, Maryland, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. If I left anybody off, please comment their name in the comment section so we can track them on Tourney X throughout the event. Again, 2-day event, middle of the week, mates, so don't sleep on it if you're not paying too much attention to what's going on. I know we normally don't look at events. I believe there's an MLF event going down during the week as well, probably on MFL Live, but just keep an eye on your Tourney X, the leaderboards for this year, and then we'll do a recap probably Thursday, Friday, once I can figure out what the logistics are for this weekend in Knoxville in terms of when the kayak anglers are going to be there on stage, all of that. I've got some emails out to kind of trying to figure out how that's going to go down, and hopefully we can get some video and cover that and figure out where to be and all that if it all works out and we can get to Knoxville again for this. If not, we'll probably, depending on the weather, depending on what happens with this cold and all this stuff that I've been battling here, and being out on the water on the Potomac again this week, because we're getting weather now is moved. We've been having 28-degree days, 28-degree mornings to 60-degree afternoons. It's been crazy. The weather's been nutty and crazy. The river's kind of wonk, but it's starting to transition a little bit. So I'll do a couple videos for that as we work on. Watch out for the Potomac River Series, like I said. Covering it from D.C., Georgetown, D.C., all the way down to Nanjemoy Creek. That is a haul of an area. We're going to break it down in a bunch of videos where we talk about all the creeks, the baits, the water temps, the areas, the ramps, all that stuff for people that are looking to fish the spawn and early summer Potomac River this year, because it's immense. There's been a lot of changes, a lot of new ramps have been fixed up, a lot of upgrades. There's new regulations in D.C. and in Maryland, not so much in Virginia, but in D.C. and Maryland that you want to pay particular attention to. All these things we will cover in that. Good luck to all the anglers down at Chickamaga, Dayton, Tennessee, middle of the week. Hope everybody gets home and is safe out on the water as well as on their way back home. All right, mates.